Don't think too much about the past. The Buddhist teaching life is a river that never flows backward. From the moment we take our first breath until our final day, we are immersed in a stream of time that moves relentlessly forward. Yet despite this undeniable truth, human beings are often trapped in the currents of the past. Memories, regrets, mistakes, lost opportunities, and wounds that never fully healed weigh down the spirit and keep many from living fully in the present. The Buddha, in his wisdom, understood this tendency of the human mind to cling to what has already passed, and he offered teachings that remind us that liberation, peace, and clarity can only be found in the present moment. To dwell on what has already occurred is to imprison the soul in illusions. To free oneself from that prison is to embrace life as it truly is, fleeting, impermanent, yet infinitely precious. The teaching, "Don't think too much about the past," is not a dismissal of memory, history, or learning from experience. Rather, it is an invitation to put the past in its rightful place. It is about not letting yesterday's shadows dictate the brightness of today. It is about cultivating mindfulness so that the heart does not live in chains forged by sorrow or nostalgia. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is attachment to what we desire, to what we fear, to what we believe should have been. When the object of attachment belongs to the past, we suffer twice. Once from the pain of the original experience, and once again from the endless reliving of that pain in our minds. In this reflection, we will explore this profound Buddhist insight in 5 expansive sections, each delving deeply into a dimension of the past and its grip on the human spirit. We will examine why clinging to the past leads to suffering, how the practice of mindfulness unshackles us from yesterday's illusions, and how forgiveness, impermanence, and compassionate awareness allow us to live more freely. Each section is written as a continuous meditation, weaving philosophy, psychology, and spiritual reflection into a journey of more than 4,000 words per topic. The intention is not only to inform, but to immerse, to create an atmosphere in which you, the listener or reader, can begin to feel the truth of these teachings in the very fabric of your being. Let us begin with the first great truth of this teaching: why the human heart suffers when it dwells too much on the past. The weight of memory and the illusion of control. Human beings are creatures of memory. Our capacity to recall is both a gift and a burden. It is through memory that we learn, evolve, and transmit wisdom across generations. Memory allows us to recognize danger, cherish beauty, and build identities that give continuity to our lives. Yet, as the Buddha observed, what seems like a treasure can also be the root of suffering when clung to without awareness. Think of the countless times a person replays a painful moment in their mind, a betrayal by a loved one, a mistake that cost them dearly, a missed opportunity that could have changed the course of their life. Each recollection is like reopening an old wound. Instead of healing, the mind insists on touching the scar, as if hoping to change its shape by sheer force of thought. But the past, like the scar, has already been written into the fabric of existence. It cannot be undone. To keep touching it is to prolong the pain. This obsessive relationship with the past comes from a subtle illusion of control. Deep down, many believe that if they think about an event long enough, they can change its meaning, alter its consequences, or somehow redeem what was lost. It is as if the mind imagines that time is malleable, that by revisiting a memory, we can reshape the reality that gave birth to it. Buddhism teaches us that this is a delusion. The law of impermanence declares that all things arise and pass away. What has passed is gone, not in some distant future, but in this very moment. The attempt to control what is gone is like trying to grasp smoke with closed fists. The tighter you hold, the more it slips away, and the more your hands ache from the effort. Consider the story of Kisa Gotami, a woman who lived at the time of the Buddha. When her only child died, she was overcome with grief. She wandered from house to house, asking if anyone had medicine to bring her child back to life. People pitied her, but knew nothing could be done. At last, she came to the Buddha, who told her he could help if she could bring him a mustard seed from a household where no one had ever died. Desperate, she searched through the village, but in every home she was told the same: death had touched their family too. At last, she realized the universality of death and the futility of her desire to reverse what had already occurred. In that realization, she found the path to wisdom. Her suffering was not from death itself, but from her attachment to the impossible hope of undoing the past. This story illustrates how memory, when not tempered by wisdom, can keep us imprisoned. It shows how the refusal to accept the past as it is leads to suffering that multiplies beyond the original pain. The past becomes a ghost that haunts the mind, whispering "what if" and "if only," phrases that have no resolution. The human heart suffers not because of what happened, but because of the way it clings to what happened. Modern psychology echoes this insight. Studies on rumination show that people who repeatedly dwell on past negative experiences are more likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and even physical health problems. Rumination does not bring clarity, it magnifies pain. It is like turning a small ember into a raging fire by feeding it with oxygen. The more we replay the past, the more we fuel the flames of regret. Yet Buddhism does not deny the importance of memory altogether. Instead, it teaches discernment. Memory should be like a tool, picked up when useful, set down when not. When memory teaches compassion, gratitude, or wisdom, it is valuable. But when memory drags us into endless cycles of regret, it becomes a chain. The practice is to recognize the difference. How, then, does one loosen the grip of the past? The first step is to see memory for what it is, not reality, but an echo of reality. Memory is not a perfect recording. It is selective, colored by emotions, and often distorted by the passage of time. Neuroscience confirms that each time we recall an event, we reconstruct it anew, influenced by our current state of mind. In other words, memory is not fixed, but fluid, not a photograph, but a painting that changes with each viewing. To treat memory as absolute truth is to mistake the painting for the landscape it represents. In meditation, practitioners learn to observe thoughts and memories as they arise without judgment or attachment. A memory comes like a cloud across the sky of the mind. Instead of chasing it, the practitioner watches it drift until it dissolves. This practice cultivates the understanding that memory is not the enemy, but neither is it the master. It is simply another phenomenon arising and passing in the field of awareness. Imagine standing on the shore of a river. Each memory is like a leaf floating by. If you try to grab the leaf, you fall into the river and are swept away. But if you stand on the bank and watch, you remain free. The river continues to flow, but you are not drowned by it. This is the art of dealing with memory without being enslaved by it. The weight of memory is heavy only when carried. To set it down is not to forget, but to recognize that the journey is easier when you do not cling to every burden. The Buddha's teaching, "Don't think too much about the past," is a gentle but firm reminder. You cannot walk forward if your eyes are always fixed behind you. To free ourselves from the illusion of controlling the past is to awaken to the present. The present is the only place where transformation is possible. It is the only field in which seeds of wisdom, compassion, and joy can be planted. By releasing the grip of yesterday, we make space for today to bloom. And so, as you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, what memories do you continue to carry as if they were stones in your heart? What illusions of control keep you bound to moments that have already dissolved into time? Can you, even now, take a breath and set them down? When you do, you may discover that freedom is not found in erasing the past, but in no longer being ruled by it. This is the first step on the path of liberation, recognizing the weight of memory, understanding its illusions, and choosing to let go. If you have reached this point in our reflection, I invite you to pause and consider the value of this teaching in your own life. And before we move forward to the next exploration, let me kindly ask, subscribe to the channel so that we may continue to share this wisdom together, supporting each other on the journey toward inner peace and clarity. The impermanence of all things and the liberation from yesterday. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence is at the very heart of his message. To understand impermanence is to begin to understand life itself, because nothing in this world stands still. The seasons change, rivers shift their course, bodies grow old, friendships evolve, and nations rise and fall. All that we know is in motion, and yet the human mind clings as if grasping at clouds, hoping that things will remain the same. This clinging is nowhere more evident than in the way we attach ourselves to the past. We treat yesterday as if it should remain intact, like a painting preserved in a museum. We look back to what once was, whether joyful or painful, and we hold it with such intensity that we forget the truth. Everything that has ever been was already destined to dissolve. Impermanence, or anicca in Pali, is not a concept meant to bring despair, but liberation. The truth that all things pass is not a curse, but a key. It unlocks the prison doors of regret, nostalgia, and longing. When we accept impermanence, we stop fighting with time. We stop demanding that life give us permanence where permanence cannot exist. The past becomes like a flower that has already withered, its fragrance still remembered, its beauty once admired, but its petals return to the soil. The memory of it may remain, but the flower itself is gone. To keep grasping for it is to clutch only air. When people dwell on the past, it is often because they do not want to accept the finality of impermanence. They replay conversations they cannot change, imagine outcomes that never came to be, or hold tight to moments of joy as if their refusal to let go could bring them back. The mind, in its yearning, rebels against the truth that everything is fleeting. But rebellion does not change reality. It only multiplies suffering. The more one resists impermanence, the more anguish one feels. Buddhist practice calls us to meditate on impermanence, not as an abstract doctrine, but as a lived reality. When we watch a candle burn, we see how the flame dances, consuming wax and wick, never the same from moment to moment. That flame is like our experiences, constantly shifting, never fixed, always moving toward their own end. To cling to what was is to miss what is. If you watch the candle only with sorrow that the wax is melting, you fail to see the miracle of its light in the present moment. Consider how often people ruin their present happiness by clinging to the past. A man may be in a new relationship, but he cannot enjoy it because he keeps comparing his partner to someone from years ago. A woman may have achieved success in her career, but she diminishes it by lamenting the mistakes she made early on. A person may be surrounded by love and friendship now, yet they drown in sadness because a loved one from long ago is no longer there. In each case, the past acts like a shadow that covers the present. And yet, the truth is that what is here now is real, while what was before exists only in memory. This is why the Buddha urged his followers to see impermanence not with fear, but with wisdom. When you truly understand that all things pass, you stop expecting the past to be otherwise. You stop demanding permanence from what was never meant to last. You begin to see that each moment is precious precisely because it cannot be repeated. To cling to the past is to miss the gift of the present. To accept impermanence is to open your eyes to the miracle that life is always new. In Zen tradition, there is the story of two monks traveling together. One day they came across a woman who was unable to cross a river. One monk, without hesitation, carried her across. Later, as they continued walking, the other monk scolded him for touching a woman, which was against their monastic vows. The first monk replied, "I left the woman at the river. Why are you still carrying her?" This story illustrates how the mind clings to the past long after the body has moved on. The second monk was still carrying the burden of that moment, while the first had already let it go. Impermanence had passed the event into history, but the second monk refused to accept it. We are like that second monk in our own lives. An event passes, yet we continue to carry it. We argue in our heads with people who are no longer present. We regret choices we made when we were different people in different circumstances. We attach our identity to moments that no longer exist. In doing so, we create suffering that is entirely unnecessary. Life is already difficult enough without adding the extra burden of carrying yesterday's weight into today. To live with impermanence is to practice letting go, not with bitterness, but with grace. Letting go is not rejection. It does not mean we deny that the past happened. It does not mean we erase our memories or pretend that pain never occurred. It means we stop demanding that the past be something other than what it was. It means we accept it fully, honor it for what it taught us, and then release it like a bird set free from a cage. Only then can we live in alignment with the truth of impermanence. Meditation offers a path to cultivate this letting go. When we sit quietly and observe the breath, we see directly how each inhale arises and each exhale falls away. No breath can be held forever. Each one is unique, complete, and then gone. The body itself becomes a teacher of impermanence. With every sensation, every sound, every thought that comes and goes during meditation, we are reminded that clinging is futile. The practice is not to fight the transience of things, but to rest in awareness as it all flows through us. Impermanence also reveals the futility of guilt and regret. How often do we torment ourselves over actions we cannot undo? We replay mistakes like broken records, telling ourselves stories of failure, unworthiness, or shame. Yet, if impermanence is true, then even our mistakes are transient. They arose under certain conditions, with certain causes, and they passed. They are not eternal condemnations of who we are. To cling to guilt is to deny impermanence. To accept impermanence is to see that who we were yesterday is not who we are today. The self, too, is in constant motion, like a river that never flows the same way twice. This understanding is profoundly liberating. When we accept impermanence, we free ourselves from the illusion of a fixed identity tied to the past. We stop saying, "I am my failures," or "I am my pain," because we recognize that what happened before is not a permanent definition of who we are. Just as no flame is identical from one moment to the next, no self is fixed from day to day. This insight opens the door to forgiveness, both of ourselves and others. Forgiveness is not about approving of harm or forgetting what happened. It is about releasing the grip of the past so that it no longer dictates the present. When we forgive, we honor impermanence. We acknowledge that both we and those who hurt us are no longer the same people who lived through that event. Time has moved, conditions have changed, and to stay chained to yesterday is to deny the reality of change. Forgiveness is the natural flowering of wisdom that sees impermanence clearly. When impermanence is misunderstood, people fear it. They fear the loss of what they love, the decay of the body, the ending of relationships. But the Buddha turned this fear into insight. He taught that because all things are impermanent, they are precious. The cherry blossom is beautiful precisely because it blooms for only a short time. If it lasted forever, it would lose its power to move us. The music of life is meaningful because it ends. Impermanence is not the enemy of joy, but its foundation. To apply this truth to the past is to see that what has ended was always meant to end. The chapter closed because all chapters must. To grieve is natural, but to remain forever in grief is to miss the next chapter that is already being written. Life is a scroll that keeps unrolling. If you keep staring at the section already written, you will never see the words that are appearing before your eyes. This is why the Buddha urged us to anchor ourselves in the present. The past is a memory, the future a dream, but the present is alive. Impermanence is not something to be feared, but embraced, because it is the very reason the present is always fresh, always new. Every morning is a chance to awaken to a world that has never been exactly as it is now. Every breath is a reminder that life is not fixed but flowing. So when you find yourself haunted by the past, return to impermanence. Remind yourself that what you are clinging to has already dissolved. Remind yourself that to carry it is to live in illusion. Open your hands, let it fall, and step into the stream of the present. There, you will find freedom, clarity, and peace. And so, at the close of this reflection on impermanence and the liberation it offers from yesterday's chains, I invite you once more. Subscribe to the channel so that together we can continue exploring these timeless teachings, walking side by side on the path toward wisdom and serenity, forgiveness, compassion, and the release of old wounds. To think too much about the past is often to reopen wounds that never healed. For many people, the past is not only a collection of memories, but also a reservoir of pain, betrayals, disappointments, injustices and losses that continue to echo in the chambers of the mind long after the events themselves have dissolved into time. These wounds fester not because the past has power, but because the mind keeps feeding them. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not only from external events, but from the way we hold them within us. If we keep clutching the thorn, we continue to bleed. Forgiveness and compassion are the ways of releasing the thorn. They are the practices that free us from the prison of the past and allow us to walk forward unburdened. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts in spiritual life. Many imagine that forgiveness means pretending the harm never happened or excusing those who caused it. But in the Buddhist path, forgiveness is neither denial nor approval. It is liberation. To forgive is not to erase the past. It is to free oneself from being chained to it. It is to look at the wound, to acknowledge it honestly, and then to release the anger and resentment that bind us to the one who caused it. The Buddha compared holding on to anger to grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who burns. In the same way, resentment keeps the fire of suffering alive within you, even when the other person may be long gone. Forgiveness is the act of putting down the coal, extinguishing the fire, and no longer allowing yesterday's flames to scorch today's peace. Compassion is the twin of forgiveness. When we cultivate compassion, we begin to see that those who harmed us did so out of their own ignorance, pain, or blindness. This does not justify their actions, but it helps us understand them. The Buddha taught that every being acts according to conditions, their upbringing, their fears, their desires, their ignorance. When someone causes harm, it is often because they themselves are suffering. To hold compassion for them is to recognize their humanity, to see that they too are caught in the web of delusion. This perspective softens the heart and makes forgiveness possible. But forgiveness and compassion are not only for others, they are also for ourselves. Many people suffer not only because of what was done to them, but because of what they did. They replay their mistakes, punishing themselves endlessly for words spoken in anger, choices made in ignorance, or opportunities wasted. They wear their past like a chain of guilt that grows heavier with each recollection. Yet Buddhism teaches that self-condemnation is another form of clinging to the past. To refuse to forgive oneself is to deny impermanence. It is to believe that one's mistakes are eternal, when in truth they have already dissolved into the stream of time. To forgive oneself is to accept that you were a different person then, shaped by conditions that are no longer the same. The self is not fixed but ever-changing, like a river. Who you are today is not who you were yesterday. The one who made those mistakes is already gone, replaced by the one reading these words now. To cling to guilt is to grasp at a ghost. The practice is to acknowledge the mistake, to learn from it, and then to release it. Forgiveness does not mean irresponsibility, it means freedom. You still take responsibility for your actions, but you do not imprison yourself in endless cycles of regret. Forgiveness and compassion are powerful antidotes to the habit of thinking too much about the past. They dissolve the poison of resentment, anger, and guilt, leaving space for peace to flourish. But they are not easy. The mind resists forgiveness because it believes that clinging to anger protects us, or that holding on to guilt keeps us righteous. The truth is the opposite. Anger and guilt do not protect, they imprison. The longer we hold them, the more they corrode our spirit. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is a form of strength. It is the courage to let go of the weapons we have been pointing at ourselves. The Buddha often taught through stories, and one that illustrates this principle well is the parable of the two arrows. He explained that when a person is struck by an arrow, it causes pain. But imagine if the same person then takes a second arrow and pierces themselves with it. The first arrow represents the pain of the event itself. The second arrow represents the suffering we create by clinging to that pain. When we refuse to forgive, when we replay the injury in our minds, when we carry anger for years, we are stabbing ourselves with the second arrow again and again. Forgiveness is laying down the second arrow. It is choosing not to multiply suffering beyond what life has already given. Compassion deepens this practice by shifting our perspective. When we look at those who hurt us through the lens of compassion, we see not only their actions, but their suffering. A parent who was harsh may have been carrying wounds from their own childhood. A friend who betrayed us may have been blinded by fear or desire. A stranger who insulted us may have been overwhelmed by their own pain. To see this does not mean we must condone or remain close to those who harm us, but it means we no longer allow hatred to dominate our hearts. Compassion transforms enemies into teachers, showing us how suffering spreads when ignorance reigns, and how healing begins when understanding grows. Forgiveness and compassion are also practices of freedom because they break the illusion of control. When we hold on to anger or guilt, it is often because we believe that by doing so, we can somehow control the past. We think that if we stay angry, we can make the wrong right. If we stay guilty, we can undo what was done. But the past cannot be controlled. It has already dissolved. To release resentment and guilt is to accept reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This acceptance is the foundation of peace. Meditation on loving kindness, or metta, is a powerful way to cultivate forgiveness and compassion. In this practice, one silently repeats phrases of goodwill, first toward oneself, then toward loved ones, then toward neutral people, and finally toward those with whom one has conflict. The phrases are simple. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you live with ease. At first it may feel unnatural to direct these wishes towards someone who caused harm. The mind resists, clinging to anger. But with practice, the heart begins to soften. One realizes that holding hatred harms oneself more than the other. Metta practice teaches us that all beings, even those who hurt us, long for happiness and freedom from suffering. When we see this, forgiveness becomes not only possible but natural. Self-compassion is equally essential. In meditation, we can place a hand on the heart and offer the same wishes to ourselves. May I be at peace. May I forgive myself. May I be free from suffering. Over time, these phrases sink into the depths of the subconscious, healing wounds of shame and guilt that words alone cannot reach. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It is the recognition that we too are human, that we too deserve kindness. The path of forgiveness and compassion is not a straight line. Sometimes anger resurfaces, sometimes guilt returns. This is natural. The mind has been conditioned for years, even decades, to cling to these patterns. The practice is to notice when the old wound arises and to gently return to forgiveness, again and again. Each time we choose compassion over resentment, each time we release guilt instead of feeding it, we strengthen the habit of freedom. Gradually, the chains of the past loosen and the heart becomes lighter. The ultimate fruit of forgiveness and compassion is love, not sentimental love, but the deep, boundless love that Buddhism calls metta, or loving kindness. This love does not depend on conditions. It does not say, I will love you if you deserve it, or I will forgive myself only if I am perfect. It says simply, I love because love frees me. This is the love that heals old wounds, dissolves resentment, and opens the heart to the beauty of the present. To live with forgiveness and compassion is to live free from the tyranny of the past. It is to recognize that no matter what has happened, you are not bound to carry it forever. You can lay it down. You can breathe freely again. You can open your eyes to the present moment without the fog of resentment clouding your vision. This is the liberation the Buddha pointed to, not in some distant heaven, but here and now, in the freedom of a heart that has forgiven. And so, at the close of this long reflection on forgiveness, compassion, and the release of old wounds, let us pause once more. If these words have touched you, if they have opened even a small door toward healing, then I invite you sincerely, subscribe to the channel so that we may continue walking this path together, supporting each other in cultivating the wisdom and compassion that bring true freedom. Mindfulness as the key to freedom from yesterday. The Buddha often described the mind as a restless monkey, jumping from branch to branch, never still, always distracted. For most people, the mind swings not only toward the future, but also toward the past, rehearsing old conversations, reliving painful memories, replaying decisions as though they could somehow be changed. This endless wandering is one of the greatest obstacles to peace. It is not the past itself that binds us, but the mind's inability to stay where life truly is, in the present moment. Mindfulness, or sati, is the medicine for this ailment. It is the practice of bringing the attention back again and again to the here and now until the grip of yesterday begins to loosen. To understand why mindfulness is the key to freedom from the past, one must first see how the mind operates. The mind is a storyteller. It takes events from the past and weaves them into narratives that explain who we are, why things are the way they are, and what we should fear or desire. But these stories are not reality. They are interpretations. And the more we identify with them, the more we become trapped in illusions. A single event from years ago can be replayed thousands of times in the mind, each time strengthening the belief that this is who I am, or this is how life is. In this way, the past becomes a cage built out of thought. Mindfulness breaks this cycle by shining the light of awareness on the present moment. When you are mindful, you see thoughts as thoughts, memories as memories, emotions as emotions. You no longer confuse them with reality. A painful memory may arise, but instead of drowning in it, you watch it like a cloud drifting across the sky. You breathe, you remain grounded, and you let it pass. In doing so, you discover that you are not the story, not the memory, not the wound. You are the awareness in which all of these phenomena arise and dissolve. This realization is profoundly liberating. The past loses its power because you no longer feed it with identification. You no longer say, I am my mistakes, or I am my trauma. You say instead, this is a memory arising in the mind, and like all things, it will pass. With this shift, the grip of yesterday loosens, and you begin to experience the freshness of now. The practice of mindfulness begins with the body. The Buddha taught that to establish mindfulness, one can start by paying attention to the breath, the posture, the sensations of sitting, walking, standing, or lying down. The body is always in the present. It cannot be in the past or the future. When the mind wanders into memories, the body anchors us back to now. A deep, conscious breath is like a hand reaching out to guide us home. Each inhale says, I am here. Each exhale says, I am free. Mindfulness then extends to feelings and emotions. When a wave of sadness arises from a past memory, the practice is not to suppress it, nor to indulge it, but simply to notice. Sadness is here. By naming it, by observing it without judgment, you create space around it. The sadness is no longer a prison. It is a passing visitor. You welcome it, you see it, and you let it go. In this way, even the heaviest burdens of the past lose their weight. They become waves on the surface of the ocean, while your awareness remains the vast depth beneath. Another dimension of mindfulness is awareness of thought itself. This is perhaps the most powerful practice for freeing oneself from the past. Ordinarily, when a memory arises, we believe it completely. We get lost in the story, feeling again the anger, shame, or longing it carries. But in mindfulness, you learn to step back. You notice a thought has arisen. You see it as a mental event, not as reality. You watch it appear, linger for a moment and dissolve. You do not fight it, you do not follow it. You simply observe. Over time, this practice transforms your relationship with the past. Memories still arise, but they no longer control you. They are like birds flying across the sky. They leave no trace. Mindfulness also reveals the impermanent nature of memory itself. Each time you recall an event, the memory changes slightly, influenced by your current mood, beliefs, and perspective. Neuroscience confirms what the Buddha intuited. Memory is not fixed but reconstructed each time. When you see this clearly, you realize that to cling to memory is to cling to something fluid, unstable, and unreliable. Why carry such a burden when it is not even solid? Mindfulness allows you to see the emptiness of memory, and in seeing this, you let go. The practice of mindfulness is not confined to meditation cushions. It is a way of living. Washing dishes, drinking tea, walking in the park, each moment is an opportunity to be present. When you are fully present, the past loses its grip. You cannot simultaneously be mindful of this sip of tea and be lost in regret about yesterday. The two states are incompatible. Each moment of mindfulness is a doorway into freedom. This does not mean that mindfulness erases the past. Rather, it puts the past in perspective. You still remember, you still learn, but you are not enslaved. You carry the lessons without carrying the wounds. You honor the memory without clinging to it. You walk forward with open eyes, no longer tripping over the shadows behind you. There is a story of a monk who was once insulted by a passerby. Instead of reacting, he simply bowed and continued walking. Later, his disciples asked how he could remain so calm. He replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse it, who does it belong to?" In the same way, when memories of insult or injury arise, mindfulness allows us to refuse the gift of suffering. We see the thought, we bow to it, and we let it pass. We do not take it into our hearts. Mindfulness also cultivates gratitude. When you are present, you begin to notice the small miracles of life, the sound of birds, the warmth of sunlight, the breath moving in and out of your body. These simple experiences become sources of joy. And when joy fills the present, the past loses its pull. Why dwell on what has gone when what is here is already so rich? Gratitude roots us in the now, and the now is the only place where peace is found. The path of mindfulness is not easy. The mind will wander again and again. Memories will arise with emotional force, but the practice is patience. Each time you notice the wandering, you gently return to the present. Each time a memory arises, you gently watch it dissolve. This gentle returning is the essence of the path. Over time it becomes a habit. The mind, once restless, learns to rest. The past, once heavy, becomes light. The fruits of mindfulness are profound. Anxiety diminishes because you are no longer haunted by what was. Depression lightens because you stop replaying old sorrows. Relationships improve because you are fully present with others, not distracted by yesterday's ghosts. Most importantly, you discover the truth that peace is not something to be found in the past or the future, but here, in this very breath. Mindfulness is the art of returning home. It is the path of remembering that life is not yesterday's story, nor tomorrow's dream, but today's unfolding. When you live this truth, the chains of the past fall away. You walk lightly, breathe freely, and see clearly. The Buddha did not promise that life would be without suffering, but he promised that through mindfulness we could be free from unnecessary suffering, the suffering of clinging to what is already gone. So let us close this reflection with an invitation. If mindfulness has spoken to your heart, if you feel the possibility of freedom stirring within you, I encourage you to take one small step today. Pause, breathe, and return to now. And as you continue this journey with us, I humbly ask, subscribe to the channel so that together we may deepen our practice, support each other, and walk the path of awareness that leads to true liberation. Living fully in the present, the Buddha's path beyond yesterday. To understand why we should not think too much about the past, it is not enough to analyze suffering, impermanence, forgiveness, and mindfulness. All of these lead to a deeper realization that life, in its truest form, is only ever lived in the present moment. The past is memory, the future imagination, but the present is alive, vibrant, and real. To live fully in the present is to walk the Buddha's path of awakening. It is to see that liberation is not hidden in distant philosophies or unreachable heavens, but in the way we breathe, the way we see, the way we touch the reality unfolding here and now. The problem of dwelling in the past is ultimately the problem of absence. When the mind clings to yesterday, we are absent from today. A person may sit in a garden surrounded by flowers, but if their mind is caught in regrets of the past, they do not see the colors, they do not smell the fragrance, they do not hear the birdsong. They are lost in ghosts. Life becomes like a book they are not reading. The pages turn, but they remain staring at one paragraph written long ago. The teaching, "Don't think too much about the past," is an urgent reminder. Life is happening now, and if you are not present, you are missing it. To live fully in the present does not mean to deny memory or planning. It means to put them in their rightful place. Memory has value when it teaches us compassion, when it shows us how far we have come, when it allows us to honor those who came before. Planning has value when it helps us act wisely and responsibly. But when memory becomes chains and planning becomes anxiety, we have lost the balance. The Buddha's path calls us back to the middle way, to use memory and planning as tools, not as prisons. The heart of this balance is presence. Presence begins with awareness of the body. Every tradition of meditation emphasizes returning to the body because the body is always now. Feel the weight of your feet on the earth, the rhythm of your breath, the beating of your heart. These are not memories, they are living realities. The more you return to the body, the more you return to the present. And the more you return to the present, the more the past loosens its grip. A person who is deeply connected to their breath cannot at the same time be lost in endless regrets. The breath anchors them to life itself. Living fully in the present also requires seeing the wonder of ordinary things. Too often people imagine that awakening must be dramatic, a lightning bolt of realization, a mountaintop vision. But the Buddha taught that enlightenment is seeing reality as it is. That means seeing the miracle in the ordinary, the taste of water on your tongue, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of laughter. When the mind is caught in the past, these miracles are invisible. But when you are present, they shine with extraordinary beauty. Consider a simple act: drinking tea. If you drink tea while thinking about yesterday's argument or tomorrow's worries, you miss the tea. You swallow it without tasting it, without gratitude. But if you drink mindfully, you notice the warmth of the cup in your hands, the aroma rising, the sensation of liquid passing through your throat. You are no longer a prisoner of memory. You are alive in this sip. The practice of being present in small moments expands to larger ones until all of life becomes an act of mindfulness, an unfolding miracle. Living fully in the present also means embracing change as it comes. Many cling to the past because they fear change. They think, if only things could stay the way they were, I would be happy. But life is change. To resist it is to resist life itself. The Buddha compared existence to a river, always flowing, never the same. To stand in the river and demand it stay still is to exhaust yourself in vain, but to step into the current, to flow with it, is to discover freedom. When you embrace change, you no longer need to hold on to the past. You welcome the new moment with openness, trusting that life is always renewing itself. Another aspect of living in the present is cultivating equanimity. This is the ability to remain balanced amid joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame. When the mind dwells on the past, it often clings to joy with longing or to pain with resentment. Equanimity dissolves this clinging by reminding us that all experiences are passing. A joyful memory does not need to be relived endlessly. Its beauty is honored and then released. A painful memory does not need to be replayed. Its lesson is learned and then let go. Equanimity allows us to walk steadily, not swayed by the winds of yesterday. Compassion is also central to present living. When you are fully present, you notice the suffering of others more clearly. You are not distracted by your own regrets, so your heart opens to those around you. A kind word, a gentle smile, a listening ear, these are acts of presence that heal. Often, people dwell on the past because they feel alone in their suffering. But when you live in the present with compassion, you realize you are connected to all beings. Everyone has a past, everyone has pain, but in the present we can support each other. Compassion transforms presence from self-absorption into shared awakening. One of the greatest gifts of present living is freedom from identity. The past often defines us in ways that limit our growth. We say, I am the person who failed, or I am the person who was hurt, or I am the person who succeeded. These identities are built on memory. But in the present, identity is fluid. Each moment is new, each breath is fresh. You are not bound to who you were yesterday. You can choose anew, you can begin again. This is why the Buddha emphasized that the self is not fixed. It is a process, not a possession. To live in the present is to live in this process, open to transformation. To live fully in the present is also to face death with peace. Much of our clinging to the past comes from fear of mortality. We think that by holding on to memories, we can keep the dead alive or keep ourselves from dying, but the truth is that death is part of life. The past is already filled with small deaths, moments that ended, people who left, chapters that closed. To accept this is to live without fear. Each present moment becomes precious because it is fleeting. When you are present, you do not need to cling to the past to give life meaning. Life's meaning shines here, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this sunrise. How then can one cultivate the art of living fully in the present? The Buddha gave many practices, but they all return to one principle: awareness. To be aware is to be alive. Whether you are eating, walking, working, or resting, bring awareness to what is happening now. Notice your breath, your sensations, your thoughts. When the mind drifts to the past, gently return. Do not scold yourself. Do not demand perfection. Each return is a victory. Each return is a moment of awakening. Over time, this practice becomes natural. The mind, once addicted to replaying yesterday, finds joy in today. You begin to notice that peace is not something to be achieved, but something always available in the present. The past no longer rules you because you no longer abandon yourself to it. You live here, where life truly is. This is the essence of the Buddha's path beyond yesterday. It is not about erasing the past, but about seeing that the past is not where life is happening. It is about discovering that liberation is not found in what was, but in what is. When you live fully in the present, you are free, not because your past is perfect, not because your future is certain, but because you have discovered the secret that life itself is always now. And so, as we conclude this final reflection, let us pause together. If these words have resonated with you, if you feel the call to live more fully in the present, I invite you to join this journey with us. Subscribe to the channel and let us continue to walk together on the path of mindfulness, compassion, and freedom, leaving behind the chains of yesterday and stepping into the miracle of today.